9.
Ready? Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's a regularly scheduled August board meeting for the Bond Oversight Committee. We've already taken attendance. Next on the agenda is the presentation of the 2006 Bond Expenditure Report. Mr. Tapia, I think that's your cue. Or Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. It'll be both of us in a way. Just want to reiterate what we talked about at the last meeting. Some of you weren't here at the last meeting, and there's some that missed that meeting, and the expenditure report we have is identical to the last month. We really haven't had many changes. All the architects, engineers have been hired. We've started either building program, trying to develop the building program, install the spaces in the schools, and schematic designs. So it's going to take a few months before we see any new designs on the new elementaries and middle school. The high school is a little further along. You've already seen some of those presentations, and they're continuing on their design. Probably bring it back to you one more time before we finalize they get into the working drawings. But we wanted to have a meeting because your bylaws say you got to have one meeting a month.
Correct.
And basically, at the last meeting, we didn't have a quorum, so we just discussed. We had informal discussions. We went over the spreadsheet that Mr. Sanchez generates out of his office, explaining the numbers, the codes, and there was a lot. It was very informative for those that were here and understanding how to read these reports. And in a way, we'd just like to cover that again if there's anybody who still had questions on that or somebody that wasn't here.
And let me ask you, though, if I understood you correctly, this spreadsheet is identical to last month's spreadsheet.
The last one's.
There's been no expenditures of funds in the last 30-day period.
I don't think so, unless there was an architect payment or two, and we'll update that at the next meeting.
What, and I'm sure I was here to hear about the difference, what is encumbered funds, and I'd like just to renew my knowledge of that.
Okay. Mr. Sanchez can go over that.
If you look at it, I'll just go back. Those are actually our account codes, those numbers you see on the left-hand column. And anytime you see a number or an account code, and this is any 600 number, always quickly tells us it's a bond expenditure. So that's the first thing that you need to remember. Oh, by the way, a little sidebar here. Yesterday we had the on-site visit from the auditors from PEA for the first bond issue, the 99 and the second one,
2001.
Whatever we had built, that we went, Oscar and myself walked through with all the auditors, walked through all the specs. We met every single criteria that we went for those bond issues back then, and the buildings met the standards, the right size, and so on. So we actually went and we walked. We spent 3 hours yesterday with them, took them to each of the campuses. We took them to Stillman Middle School, Ortiz, Villanueva, Porter, Russell, Pace, Skinner, Sharp, and Russell. And they give us a clean bill of health. In other words, they're here, they did a desk audit, and then they have to come back and actually visualize, and they have a list and they just check off. The rooms, the labs, do they meet the specs? Yes. The regular classroom, yes. Special ed, yes. And so on and so on. They went to the gymnasium. You can have a gymnasium with 150 seat capacity, which is allowed under bond, but if you add any more seats than that, it's 250, right? 150. Any more seats than that, you can't use bond money for that. And we told them, all these other seats, we didn't use bond money, we used local funds to support that. And so it went really well. Back to this thing.
Well, let me interrupt you very quickly and just commend you, Mr. Gonzalez, you, Mr. Tapia, and everybody from the school district who's involved in making sure that you all did what you were supposed to do with the funds, and that the TEA has signed off and giving you guys a thumbs up on that. And I just want to make sure that publicly we state on the record that you and everyone in the administration and the teachers as well are to be commended for that.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Yes, sir.
How often did you all get that, especially on the bond side?
That only comes after all projects have been completed, and we start filing, like on this one, It'll probably be maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe from now.
3-4 years.
So we can be seeing.
When we're done with this bond, they will visit us.
Okay, so you can see if it was in compliance or meet the regulations or not.
Right.
We still have to, if there's some changes, not in the scope of, but we always have changes or amendments we send those in, and then after we send those amendments in, then they come back and they send us, okay, I've just started, tell me in writing what you actually did. Then they do an actual visitation to make sure you did what you said you have amended, and they check on that. So it's kind of an internal control to make sure that the bond's money is being spent where it's supposed to be spent. Okay, going back to the first page, and the key here is, and of course, it's 631. So we labeled 631. If you look at the number 1, 631, that's proposition number 1. Go to the next page, and that's your 2 elementaries. Go to your next page. 632 matches up with the proposition 2, which is our middle school. 633 matches up with our third bond proposition, which is your high school, and 634, the 4, indicating that was all the wings and the other renovations that we did. So there's a logic to the way we do the accounting. Then for each of the projects, we have basic line items, as you can see there. I'm not going to go through, but you can buy land, a contractor, architects, geotech, and so on, and it repeats itself for each of the bond projects. So anytime we have an expenditure for the high school, we're going to go to 633. If we have an expenditure for the elementaries, it's going to go to fund 631, and that's how we sort out. And the accounting system in our software is set up in that manner. And these are the account codes that are we don't make these up. These are the account codes that TEA says you must have, and they provide us with a guide, a resource guide of all the numbers that we have to use for each of those line items. And so, as you can see, one of the questions that was asked last time, and we might just on page 1. Let's just take page 1. And you look at the third line, the contractor, $12 million. Okay, that's to say that is the contract price when the bid comes in. Okay, so let's say the bid came in for the general contractor to do the job, $13 million. Well, I mean, this is our best guess, right? So what happens with all the other accounts? We could move any funds from any of those line items to cover for the shortfall of that particular line item. Okay. Some of the other line items may come under the budget. And so this is allowable by TEA, and this is allowable by IFA. So this is how we move from one line item to another line item. If you focus on the next number, which is 631, and there's two digits there, 81. 81 always it stands for a facility construction number. And you notice that every one of the numbers for each of the projects, those 2 numbers is 81. Well, that tells you it's construction. Now, TEA also says it is whenever you move money within the same function, and you notice at the top it says FNC, that's a function. That's what they call that number, the function. As long as it's in the same function, you can move up and down the money. And that's why we have the liberty of moving the money from one line item to another. And these are all generally accepted accounting principles that are provided to us by TEA. The column, the first figure is your budget. The next column says year-to-date expenditure. Well, that's what we have on. We could have what we call a requisition on the line that we haven't posted yet. The encumbers column says, hey, we already have a legal obligation out there. We haven't paid it. And then you take your actual expenditure minus, you're going to take your budget minus your year expenditure minus your encumbers, gives you the balance on the very far right. And it applies to each of the projects. So that's how you read this spreadsheet, okay? Yes, sir.
If you have a budget, let's just say, 900,000 architect or engineers.
Okay.
Do you have a certain threshold where you have to send out bids?
We have to do all this bidding before we do any of this.
So all these line items, you have to go through a bidding process?
No, we ourselves estimate.
No, okay. But-
We put these numbers ourselves.
Right, so you have your estimated budget,
Mhm.
and then you're gonna utilize that budget and expense it, right? You're gonna go out there and you spend this money.
The bottom line is, we have $15 million to spend.
I know, but my question is, on each of these line items, do you all go out for bids?
No,
No?
no, sir. No, not for all the line items. Now, we do an RFQ for the architect, a request for qualifications.
So say you're gonna go out there and spend $30,000, you don't have to go out for bids on spending $30,000.
Let me explain that.
I don't know if I'm
Let me
asking the right
explain it
question.
real quick. There's certain things under the procurement code that you have to go out on bids on, and there's other things that will not allow you to go out on bids on. For example, if it's a contracted type service such as architects, you cannot go and base it on price. You gotta base it on qualifications. If all of these people sitting in front of me are architects, they submit their resumes to us, just like they did. Once we pick the best one, then we have to negotiate a price for it with it. You can't bid it out. It's a best on RFQ, and that's how you determine the price of the architect. And then on printing, that's a reimbursable. So when we make the contract out with the architect and say, we're gonna allow you so many dollars for printing, that's part of his fee, but it's a reimbursable. So it's on top of what he's already charging you for printing blueprints or whatever. That's a reimbursable, so doesn't go out on bids. But that's the architect's responsibility, to get the printing done, but it's called a reimbursable. We, the district, pay for that because that's not part of his fee. So we don't know how much printing is gonna have to be done, depending on how many people pick up plans and so on and so forth. The geotechnical, we set out an annual bid for that. We set that out, and we do the same thing, RFQs, right, Oscar?
Mm-hmm.
And we say, we negotiate with them for the year. So when they come up to a project and they say, we need the geotechnical done on that, and then they go out there, give you an estimate of what it's gonna cost you. We take that back to the board and say, this is what it's gonna cost us. But then again, you're an engineer, they're a professional. You can't go on price, you gotta base on qualifications. So when you look at these things and you go in there, what is a hard bid? Contract.
That's the only one.
That's the only one. The other ones are basically negotiated because they are all professional people. You select the best one, and then you negotiate that fee, and then you take that back to the board of trustees to approve that fee, and then how you move on. So not everything is bidded because it's not allowed to bid, because it's based on qualifications, not on who does it the cheapest, because whoever does it the cheapest might not be the best person to do the job.
And we would have these things in place whether we had issued a bond or not, generally because we have other constructions that we're funding from local resources. And so we already have these contracts already in place with RFQs, and the contractor would be an RFP, a request for proposals. And a request for proposals allows the district the negotiation. And then within that there's a structure, and the board selects the method of procurement for that, and then we set criteria how to evaluate those proposals. And then when you get to this level, it is very structured way to negotiate with the contractor, very, very structured. And then you deal with one person, and if that's best and final offer, and you wheel and deal, and we don't feel like that we can go there, we end negotiations and we can go on, proceed to the next person. And that's the way it's set, and then that's the way it's structured.
I want to caution, because when you go into it and we bring in this RFPs to y'all, say for any school, middle school, high school, it doesn't matter, and you negotiate with the lowest one, and you say, well, no, you know, he's at 12, we want 10.5, he's not willing to come down to 10.5, or he's willing to come down to 11. Can you go to the next one? Yes, but can you ever come back to the lowest one again? No. That's it. You kick that one out. Then it becomes a law that's playing one contractor against another. You cannot do that. You have to be able to negotiate with the lowest, and if you're not able to do that, then you can go to the next one, but you can never go back to the lowest again.
So once you negotiate with somebody, you cannot go back?
You cannot go back.
And we gave them we put it in writing, is this your best and final offer? And that cuts it off.
Okay.
It cuts it off, and that's it. Now we go to superintendent, this is what it is, sir, what do you think? Well, we set them up like, well, you know, we get directions, we go to the next one, if we go to the next one, that's the end of that, we notify this, we finish negotiations with you, we're proceeding to the next one.
Wow, the way it works.
So to answer your question, in a way, we do bid everything out. It's just that the contractors is a true bid, and all the other professional engineers are RFQ'd solicitations, which is a bidding process, but for professional services. So in a way, everything is, in a way, bid out, advertised.
Required by law.
It's just the land we didn't bid, and of course, the printing's under the architect. But everything is bid out either by bid or by qualifications, advertised and follow the procurement process.
But if we did we do this just for this project?
No.
Together, no, we don't do that way. We have professional services that we hire, and we send that bid for the entire year. So any project that comes, we can always refer to that particular professional, because he has a bid for the entire year on an RFQ.
Would it be possible on the heading, like, for example, Proposition 3, to just put the words high school for us, that...
I will do that the next time.
You want to remember?
Can't quite remember.
I will.
It sure would make it easier just to headline it there.
We will.
Thank you.
Michael?
You still want to know what encumbered means?
You
never had these questions?
I
thought I answered.
I got encumbered. That,
Okay.
it's going to be paid, it hasn't been paid yet. Is
Right.
that right?
The purchase contract,
Make a
contract
motion to
is signed.
Okay, well, legal
I don't
obligation.
have a charge
Future
account.
expense, basically, is what it is.
Purchase order's been issued.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. Hoskins?
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the report.
I don't think we can accept the motion right now, Mr. Hoskins. We don't have a quorum, and so because we don't have a quorum, we can't take any action on any items. So I think that the better way to handle that, with the suggestions of the remainder of the committee, will be to accept this is used solely for discussion purposes today, and for informative purposes.
Just acknowledge
And just acknowledge
That's
that.
what I said, acknowledge the report.
Well, but we can't actually take a motion. We can't actually vote on a motion, because there's no quorum.
All right.
Does anybody else have any questions regarding the report that was submitted by Mr. Sanchez and Mr. Tapia?
I have one question. On the line item architect/engineer, are those for two different professional services, or is it just one? Either or?
What you do when you select an architect, you select it's for architectural and engineering services. The engineering services that come in there are your structural, mechanical, those people that are actually going to design the building. Not necessarily your civils. It could be in your civils in there, depending on how we structure it. But that's all the guys that do the air conditioning, your MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. They're included in the architect's fee. We don't hire them. The architect hires their own engineers, and they're accountable to the architect, and the architect is accountable to us. So when we say architectural engineering services, it includes most of the engineering services, but sometimes we do a little on our own, like surveying and stuff like that. We have to give them the elevations and everything before, so they can start working on it. But when it gets down to the mechanical, electrical, the plumbing, they hire their own engineers. So that's why it's part of the fees, the mechanical and engineering fees.
Thank you.
Mr. Tapia, I know you said that they're not quite yet through with the final renderings for the high school, but how close are they, and how close are they to put out to bid? The reason I asked that is because I went to Proposition 3, and I noticed that year to date, plus encumbered, we've already we spent $4 million some odd thousand, give or take, $3,735,000, and so we're down to $46,274,000, which is close to the amount that we have budgeted for the contractors' fees. So in a long-winded way, I guess my question was, how much more are we gonna get in terms of expenditures from the architects prior to actually putting it out for bid? Because we're getting close to our budgeted amount for the construction.
70% of 2.7. The architectural fees for the high school is, the maximum amount they can get is $2,700,000. Based on that, we work, because that's the maximum they can get. 30% of their fee is for construction observation. So as they go through the bidding phase, when they complete the bidding phase, where they actually bid it out, we should have paid them 70% of the 2.7.
Okay.
So, and then after that, we pay them as they go through the observation phase concerning how much work has been actually been completed. So that's the percentage they've been observation of the 30% that's left. So they get their money up front basically for design, schematics and design, and all of that goes through it. So when you get down to it, we met with them, what was it, last week?
This week.
And, you know, they got a $45 million budget to work with. They're struggling right now, and we've been working with them and tweaking and trying to cut here or there, but we're not going to compromise the building in any form or fashion, nor are we going to compromise quality in any form or fashion. So we're sticking with the, you know, try to get it in as close as you can to 45 million, and we'll see how we go from there. But I'm not going to cut to be able to go put portables the next day. We're going to do it the right way. We're looking at a 330,000 square foot building, and pretty well sticking to that, and everything that goes along with it. And we hope to come in at a good price with good quality materials.
What would happen especially if they will not come through? I mean, I know even though you pay already 75% already.
It's our plan. We have to still playing with the plans. As far as what will happen, say if it comes in at 52 million, then depending on the competitiveness, we have options. Because it's an RFP, we can negotiate it down.
So it's going to be open to options.
And if we can't find if they're not willing to negotiate to something that we're comfortable with, then we can rebid it. So it all depends which way we're going to go. If I only get one bidder, then it's not a really competitive bidding. I only got one, unless I can get a real good price for it. I might just put it back on the street. So to answer your question, how far are we? During good design phase, we hope to hit the streets sometime in early October. When I say hit the streets, in other words, send out for bids so the contractors can pick up the plans and come in and award it in December. However, if it becomes way too high, we might have to have a delay there. This is why it's tight schedule. It's what I call a tight schedule, because I don't know what the bids are going to come in. I assume that most of the bids are going to be out-of-town bids because of the bonding capacity. That's just the way it is.
At this point, we're at 30%. We paid the architects 30%. They've completed their schematic. Now they're entering their design development, starting with the actual working drawings.
They're in
Yes.
stage.
We've only paid 30% to the architects.
Which line item are you talking about?
Where it says architect engineer on bond 633, which is the high school.
So you spend $135,000.
We paid 135. We have 2,565 left to pay them.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's, the way I understand that is that if you've encumbered, you got a legal obligation. I thought that was a contracted amount.
It is.
So you've spent $135,000 out of the $2.5 million.
Yeah, it was originally 2.7. It goes down to 2.5 because we paid the 135.
Okay, well, that's kind of confusing because, I mean, if you have a legal obligation of 2.7, then it needs to be there, because then those numbers are going to be changing all the time. I guess we have to add them up all the time.
These two columns, if you look at these two
I guess
columns,
this needs to be.
when you add this one and this one together, it should always be 2.7.
It is.
Right.
It is.
2.7.
No, I understand that, it's just, I mean,
I think-
one goes up, the other one goes down, and
Yes.
that's okay, I just,
You'll never
that's
have
okay.
one.
And I think this one, Mr. Sanchez, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Mr. Farias brings up a good point. However, the way I understand that with respect to this line item specifically, we were encumbered from the beginning once the contract was negotiated and accepted to 2.7 million.
That's it.
And so we're always going to be encumbered there at 2.7 million, and it's just going
No
to...
matter what happens.
Okay.
And so why did we have 3 million there? That was our best guess before we did the RFQ.
Right.
And so can I move the 300,000 that's balance there?
Sure, anywhere.
Where can I move it? I can move it to the general contractor, I can move it down to any of the other line items.
Right. That shouldn't happen that won't happen again. In other words, you won't have a fully encumbered number until you actually contract for the entire project. Once you get under a contract for, say, the building of the high school, and let's say it comes in at 45 million, you're going to show an encumbrance of 45 million.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
Okay.
And that's it.
And you're actually dumping back into the other line as opposed to...
Right. Exactly.
When you actually cut the PO,
So
the board approves it.
the encumbered line actually means remaining obligation.
Remain balance.
Right.
Under that line item.
Yeah, because every time you
Yes.
spend money, then what's left over is your remaining obligation.
Correct, but the way I read it and I agree with you, it was a bit confusing, but the way I read it, like if you go back to page 1, if you look at architectural engineering, that $630,000, that's a legal obligation we have to pay already.
That's right.
You know, we paid for those services. And if you go down to the other, we paid if you go down to other, we say $1,850 we've expended, and we actually are holding back $2,300 that we have to pay under whatever that line item is for, which is different than what we were talking about with respect to the encumbrance on the high school, because we've encumbered the entire amount at the outset. Okay.
Absolutely right.
Anyone else have any other questions?
What about the progress on the elementary and middle school design?
Those, we've given them the building programs based on Ben Bright Elementary. We had a big committee when we designed Ben Bright, of principals, teachers, librarians, nurses, all kinds of people, and we developed Ben Bright. We've taken that same building program and given them to Genac Architects, Reich Ogden, Figueroa, but they're going to come up with a different design than what Ben Bright looks like, but it's going to have the same elements. It's just going to be configured different. And on the middle school, I'm going to meet Monday with PBK Architects to hand them their building program, and they're going to start doing some schematic designs, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, I think, to maybe 2 or 3 options, and then we're going to create a little design committee to overview those plans, elementary principals and other administrators, a nurse, a librarian, to start seeing how the design's going to look. And once we'll present those to this group, and once we like one of the plans, then they'll take off finalizing and fine-tuning that concept.
What kind of a timeline do you have?
The architects presented a timeline at the facilities committee meeting. They were all basically finishing the design in late fall, early winter, bidding out and starting construction around February of '08. Some were a little later, but we're trying to condense them shorter. February, March, start construction.
What is the time period to build on elementary school?
Elementary, 12 to 13 months. The middle school, 16 months.
High school, 2.5 years.
24 to 28 months.
And Mr. Peña, just so that you'll know, they announced early on at the outset of the meeting that this report is identical to the report that was presented to the committee last month, at last month's meeting. There have been no new expenditures that have been ledgered on the spreadsheet.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions? Because I do need to be somewhere else.
Yes, sir. I actually, if you'll give me one second, are there any other questions with respect to this?
Sir, I have one more question. On proposition 1 and 2, I know the land purchase, to my understanding, everything was paid, but we still have a balance versus on proposition number 3, there's a zero balance. I mean,
Let me interrupt you real quick, since the superintendent has to go, because I have to make a notification pursuant to Article 6, Section 1 of the bylaws of this committee. It's my job as the chairman to notify you when members of the board have resigned. We have received the resignation of Mr. Nick Sarafi and Mr. Jim Tipton. So pursuant to that section of the bylaws, would you please notify the trustees who appointed them so that they could then fill their vacancies?
No problem.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, would it be any trouble for this group to meet at the old high school that you remodel those that, because I know that they had to come through a lot of problems to set up here, and I understand that everything is set up over there, top of the art, and the cameras are there, the microphones are there. Am I correct, guys?
We can do it over there. You even have the capacity to do it live over there.
This is, it's,
What you do.
and I understand you need less personnel as well to handle that meeting over there.
That'd
So
be-
I think it'd be-
it's up to y'all where y'all want to meet. I want to make it as comfortable for you all. We decided here because of the central location, for a lot of people coming from different sides of town. We are here to accommodate whatever the Bond Oversight Committee wishes are as far as, I just didn't want to bump you out over and over again at the main office. If y'all want to meet over there, that's fine with me too. It's very comfortable over there. If you want to meet here, that's here too. Just let me know.
I think the traffic is less traffic over there than it is here, and I feel that we have everything set up there. I think it would be awesome to have it there.
If at any time y'all want to move,
Why don't we try that next meeting and...
that's fine with me. Sure. You want to set up over there?
Sure, we don't need it live, though.
No, but in case you ever do.
We need it delayed with early.
No le saque.
I wouldn't have minded being live if people got a chance to hear what you reported on. The fact that the school district met all the things that we had to with the last bond issue, I think that's wonderful. You are all of you are to be commended for that. I think that's wonderful. Speaks very well for the district. And I'm sure that you'll be just as careful with this. I have no doubts in my mind.
I just want to caution you that we have a lot of Thursday football games this year. For September, October, and November, Thursdays are the stadium. I think I got a game every Thursday, so just want to let you know because of the traffic and the parking.
You have a rush of people heading that way.
That's true.
I just want
And it's rush hour too.
Didn't think about that.
I know that your video staff record the video football games,
Yes, I do.
and so that is it going to create a problem if we have our meetings on Thursday nights?
We split our people, right? We can cover it. We can split them up. We have a good staff. I work with them. I've been their supervisor for many years. They're great people.
You've got a great staff. I just am sure that they'd rather be watching the football game than listening to us talk.
The experienced guys get to go to the football game. The rookies come and listen to you.
My suggestion is wherever it's more efficient for them to set up and the less people and man hours you're able to use, I think that we're all, as the Bond Oversight Committee, are sensitive.
I didn't realize about the football.
What time is the football game?
Starts at 7.
Starts 7:30. People start arriving about 6:30.
We're gonna be there
6:30.
earlier.
5:30.
You can go from there. You can go to the football game.
True, too.
So we can set it up over there. We'll set it up. We'll try.
We'll try it and see if it works out.
Okay.
And in the studio, where are they going to put it? Or at the camp?
As a guy.
And Mike, back on that question, did you get a
Yes.
hold of all the individuals? Because there's a few others here that have missed 3 or 4 meetings. Did you?
We'll get back to that in just a second. I wanted to, Mr. Gonzalez had to leave. I wanted to notify him pursuant to the articles about the resignation of the 2 members.
Any other questions before I take off? Anything you might, from any of you?
Thank you. Thank you for coming, sir. Mr. Peña?
Yes, sir, let me, with question again of, this is on line number 1, the land purchase, proposition 1 and 2. I know there's a balance, and on proposition number 3, we have a surbalance. I know you mentioned, Oscar, at the beginning, all the land purchase, the land was purchased already, but my question is, why do we still have a balance? This for future construction, or?
The budget?
Yes.
Why do we have a balance
A
of that?
balance, yes, sir. That's
Well,
correct.
because we estimated that we probably could get the land for $1,071,000, más o menos.
Oh, it's
But we actually got it for $788,000. We already spent the money, so we actually have $282,000 left that I can move to any other line item.
So that's a surplus.
Yes.
Right.
You cannot use it for future land inventory?
Sure. We can, when all the projects come in, and let's say we just did one heck of a job in negotiations, and we got $25 million left. Can we go back and amend our IFA application to say we're gonna build another elementary? Absolutely. With all the money we will go in here and rake all the money from each of the projects, and now we got another pool of money that we can go back at. Now,
We'll create new line
right,
items.
we have done what the public said we could and more. The minimum requirement, we gotta do what the voters said we needed to do. We gotta take care of that first. Got any money left over, then we can amend our and go and build additional qualified projects. There's a list of things, did I give you all that list or not? I
Yes,
think
sir.
I did.
You did.
The qualified projects only, okay? And so, yes, we could use that money. If we have money left from each of the projects, each of the 4 propositions, we can combine and pool the resources and actually go out and we'll go through the same process again. We'll do an RFQ for the architects, we'll have to go out and we'll have all the same line items that we have here.
What happens if it goes the other way around, overexpend?
Then I gotta find from another line item there, I hope I can find money to move in there. Okay?
Yeah, we gotta pitch in from local money.
Right, and if not, if we don't have any money, then I gotta go to the board and says, you know what?
Oh, sure.
We ran out of bond money, can I go into our regular fund balance?
Local money.
And
Local money
put some
for you.
local money in there, yeah.
So you can switch from one proposition to the other proposition on the bond money?
I gotta complete them all first.
Okay.
Can't move money until
It's
that
complete.
project. When I finish the high school, the project's done, I got $3 million left, now I can go on and move it to another project.
Do a wing at another school that has
Right.
portables or something.
But I can't be moving the money before the projects are completed.
And let me ask you, with respect to the status of the projects as they exist right now, you all are satisfied with the movement and the progression by everybody who's been contracted to do whatever they've been contracted to do?
I think we're fairly satisfied, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do a shotgun approach, have 4 or 5 architects working on it, have lots of folks involved, because once this thing gets out in the market, it's gonna be a lot of activity in Brownsville. And of course, these numbers are gonna change very rapidly, okay, because expenditures are going to be incurred, and you're gonna see those numbers just kind of rolling over. But we're satisfied with, they're all experienced architects, and the professional people, the engineers that they have working for them. We've done business with them before, so, it's just, we have to weigh what, at a particular point in time, what you bring to the table, that's what we look at.
Question, Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
How much do we have in the fund balance for debt service?
For debt service, I would hate to venture a guess.
An estimate?
Okay, the auditors come in after August 31st?
The auditors are already visiting our doors now as we speak, yes.
Oh, okay.
Because we got a June 30th fiscal period, so we ended the year June 30th. We
Oh, that's
changed
right, we changed it.
Right, so they're already in, and they're already doing some, what we call preliminary audit procedures, so they're already in. I met with them the other day, and we have a checklist of things that we have to do on our part, and they have a checklist of things that they have to do on their end.
So when do you anticipate having the audit report ready?
The audit report probably would be, we're shooting for November, right, hopefully before Thanksgiving.
So by that time, we'll have an idea of what's in there, in case.
And one of the things that happens with debt service, the law is very specific. Every year, it's all based on property values. It's a complicated formula. But they say, when you have a general obligation bond, you must have a tax rate that equals the payment of the principal and interest. I think that's very clear, so that there's 2 parts to the tax rate, what we call the M&O side and the INS side. The INS side is what pays interest and principal over here. That's the one that has to have. Now, over time, those rates have fluctuated, so sometimes we collect more because, for example, we have this compression rate that the TEA has put on us. So in the interim, we might have collected more taxes, but like right now, we're in a different year, but we still have the old tax rate. We won't adopt a tax rate till September, our new budget's already in place. So that timing issue, sometimes, well, if I have a higher tax rate, then I'm going to have 2 months from now or a month from now, I collected a lot more taxes than I needed to make my next payment. So that's how you kind of build your fund balance on the INS side. Say, well, what happens if you have a little bit too much money on that side? Very simple. You don't have to raise taxes for a couple of years until you run out of that money that, you know, and that's what we've been doing. We didn't raise taxes for about 2-3 years while I was here at the beginning. And so what we were trying to do is use up some of the excess collections on the INS side.
Good.
So we're working it.
Last round, any questions on the report?
The only expenditures that you've done so far have done with your roofing, and I guess that's been kind of an ongoing expense right now on re-roofing. On the bond issue, item number 4.
Let's see here.
So that's basically work that's already almost semi-completed. It's on almost the second to last page. You got, I guess, the contractors have been negotiated and they've been paid, I guess, substantial amounts.
Yeah, before we did the bond issue, we're already working on the design for the re-roofs out of local money. We're going to do that. But once the bond passed, I had these listed in the bond. So we just, instead of using local money, we used bond money. But we're way ahead of the game. At the time we were bidding, we assigned bond money. And that's why this one took off.
So that one was...
There's others that we're barely going to start designing to re-roof.
One of the things that I did is to work with the 2 gentlemen that came down yesterday, some other folks from Austin on bond money. And I told them, look, I've got a good deal sitting here. I need to buy the money, but you know the money's not going to become available to us in three months from now. I can't wait. I got to buy the land right now. So he says, no problem. Use local funds. Go buy the land. When you get the bond money, reimburse your local funds. Perfectly legitimate. And that's why you'll see some of these expenditures going on, because we went and said, okay, we need to get these roofing things done. We know they're going to be funded, so we use local funds, and we're reimbursing the district back. And then we're going to, and again, the ratio doesn't change. We're 75 cents on the dollar and 75 cents on the dollar.
So I imagine that's why on the shutters, what your budget had actually came in because you had already worked on it before.
All righty, thank you for the report. Mr. Tapia, the only thing we have left, since we don't have any old or new business to take action on, is Mr. Tapia wanted to make a comment regarding other board members?
Yes, if you had contacted others, or were you maybe not able to get a hold of them, I think we had, I know we had Mr. Terry Ray, Mr. Leal had 3, but he showed up at the last one. Charles had missed a few, but he was here today. Mr. Gomez hasn't shown up. This is his 4th meeting, so I don't know if you attempted to get a hold of him.
I will send him I will communicate with him tomorrow.
Okay. So it's mainly Mr. Ray and Mr. Gomez to see if they're, that way once we notify the board, we can notify them of the 3 or 4 instead of just 2.
Sure.
These are 4 consecutive?
Yes.
Just for me? Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tapia. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss? All right, we stand adjourned till the next it's the first Thursday of September, and we will be meeting at the old high school new administration building.